Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry back with you today talking about sobriety, how to stay sober. And today, what we're doing is we're going through letter number 7, which is what is the deal with denial? How do we deal with denial in our own lives and the lives of others? How do we deal with the fact that maybe we can't admit that we have a problem with alcohol? We're going to talk about those things today, and we're going to go over those in a real world way that's going to show you what's really going on in your life, in your mind, and in your drinking. So, get ready. We are going to start the show on the road. How you doing, Terry?
I'm doing well. Wonderful
Good
day
to
here in
hear.
California.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to get this screen fixed up here. Let's see. That one and that one. Now, I think I'm all ready to go. Let me just make sure everything's working. I don't know what Skype likes to do this little blinking thing, but let's get ready to go. All right, so today what we're doing is we're talking about letter number 7, what's the deal with denial? And I'll go ahead and read this letter. We'll go through it and discuss it and talk about all the things that happen when we're dealing with denial. So, letter 7, what's the deal with denial? Hey again, friend. One of the things that drove me up the wall when I was a problem drinker was all the people who said I was living in denial or avoiding the fact that I had a drinking problem. They also said I was in denial about my emotional life and other things like that. It just made things worse and made me want to drink even more. You could probably relate to that. There's nothing like a loved one, or a spouse in my case, telling you that you have a drinking problem when so many of my issues were wrapped around our relationship and family issues. It was like other people could literally send me to the bar by saying things like, "How many is that now, Marcus? Don't you think you've had enough? It's kind of early for a drink, isn't it?" Or, "You really need to stop drinking." This kind of stuff just sent me into a tailspin and made things super worse. If I planned on only having 3 drinks that day, these statements would triple the amount. Who the hell are you to tell me when I've had enough to drink? Who the hell are you to tell me I need to quit? So let's first try to see what these people are talking about and get to the bottom of what denial is. Let's define it. Denial is a failure to acknowledge an unacceptable truth or emotion or admit it into consciousness, used as a defense mechanism. So denial is used as a defense mechanism. That's a pretty basic description. It just means that there's something outside your consciousness that we are not willing to bring into our reality because we fear the pain that it might cause us. And the pain, let's see here. And the pain I think I wrote that wrong. And the pain we are hiding from can be a big deal. Do I have to admit I'm an alcoholic and tell everyone I know? Do I have to go to meetings every day and be one of those people? Do I have to commit right here, right now, to never drink again for as long as I live? What changes do I have to make in my life once I admit or say I'm an alcoholic? And on we go. My mind was overwhelmed with this stuff before I even got sober. I feared that I would no longer be me, that I would be some brainwashed cult member who was so weak and feeble that he couldn't even be in the same room as a glass of wine. But the fact of the matter is that my eyes are bugging me today. But the fact of the matter is, we all have things we are in denial about in certain areas of our life. It's our coping mechanism. It's the old fill in the blanks part of your brain. Because every day, on a daily basis, your mind is receiving so much data from so many sources and through so many senses that it's impossible for anyone to remember everything, process it, and make decisions based on all the input that comes in. It's like right now. My computer is receiving data input from me typing on the screen. And with each punch of the letter, it pops up on the screen. Pretty simple. But if I connected 500 keyboards, a webcam, a microphone, a scanner, a camera, other input devices, the system would start to overload or crash. So in order to prevent your mind from overload and crash, it automatically filters and deletes things that it does not see as important for the hierarchy of survival. Think about it like this for a moment. Right now, your mind is focused on reading or listening to me. Even though lots of things are happening around you, your breath, the temperature of the room, the light, the feel of the paper, or the look of the screen, and you're not even noticing what your left ear feels like, even though that it's a sensor, an input device, sending data to your brain. You are not conscious of it. You weren't even thinking about it till I brought it up. Yet, if a bee stung you on your ear, then wham, all your attention goes to that sensor and the input because it's now saying pain and sounding the alarm. But unless that happens, your mind is just simply deleting thousands, perhaps millions of data sets each minute about your ear because there's no threat there at that moment. Obviously, if something like a bear started attacking you, your mind would shut off every input and you would just have laser focus on get the heck away from the bear and whatever tasks that involved. Even the bee sting becomes a moot point at that instance. This happens every minute of every day. Input comes into your brain, thoughts come out about that input. It's all the input, and all the input first passes your filters and your deleters. So if all of a sudden someone's facial expression, no matter how unnoticeable it may be to everyone else, reminds me of someone who abused me or hurt me, all of a sudden I may start to feel fear, and I might not even know why. Behind the scenes, my mind scanned that face for the 23 cues to the asshole detection, and bam, my radar is now up. What the hell does this have to do with denial, Marcus? I mean, seriously. Well, we're talking about how things that your mind knows but leaves out of consciousness, out of protection for yourself, and only brings them into awareness when it sees things as a threat to survival. So I'm guessing that somewhere in your subconscious mind, you know that you're an alcoholic, just like I did. But you're unable to really bring it to light enough to either put down the bottle once and for all, very hard to do on our own, or get the help you need. Hard to swallow our pride and admit we need help. More about this later. And sometimes we need just a little jogger to help bring this stuff to light. We must learn to listen to the opinions of others without taking offense. That's a quote from one of my teachers in rehab. Before I got sober and I had my change of mind, it was very hard for me to listen to the opinions of others, people, about myself and take them to heart because I was so busy working on my defense and my reply to actually listen and process what they were saying to see if it's in fact true. So when someone came to me and said, "Hey, Marcus, I think you have an alcohol problem," immediately my threat filter came up and scanned my mind to bring up those things that I had attached to what it meant to be an alcoholic. So they'd say that, and I'd say in my brain, I'm bad, I'm weak, I'll never be able to drink again, I'm a filthy alcoholic in the gutter, or whatever I believed. On top of this, I was chemically dependent on alcohol, which meant that my conscious mind and subconscious mind now believed that I needed alcohol to survive. So in essence, my mind was afraid of no alcohol more than it was afraid of what other people were saying about me as a person. Yep. My mind, subconscious and conscious, had been hijacked. Add that to the inability to listen to others' opinions, and you have an award-winning combination for the death spiral into the grips of alcoholic insanity. And insanity it was. It landed me in a mental hospital against my will. Now, here's an easier way for you, because I believe the whole rock bottom thing is about willingness to accept things for what they are. Rock bottom to me was when I realized that alcohol had hijacked my life. It was in my thoughts. It was in my feelings. It was in my subconscious. I felt like I needed it to live on a daily basis. And for all intents and purposes, I did. I was stuck. Are you stuck? Can you honestly say that you can live without alcohol? And I'm not talking about the lame-ass 3 days or a week or whatever you made it to this time. I mean your life. Because if you're anything like me, you're caught in a trap you can't think your way out of. Can you live and function without drinking or thinking about drinking? For me, it was crazy. I worked from home, and the first thought on my mind when I woke up was, did I have enough alcohol to make it through the day, even if it was a bad day? So I'd wake up, I'd count the bottles I had on hand, the hard stuff, the wine, whatever it was, and if I was out, I would take my lazy, non-exercising ass and walk as far as I could so that I had enough to stock up for the day. And if I had enough on hand, I'd drink it all before the day was up. And if I found myself, a guy who didn't leave the house without showering in the morning, walking non-showered in whatever clothes I could throw on to the local liquor store, sometimes even so out of my mind, I didn't even remember going there or what I got. But nothing was in the way of having my security blanket of enough alcohol to make it through. This fucking drink owned me. I thought about it more than I thought about my work, more than I thought about my wife, more than I even thought about my kids. It was my God. I bowed down to the almighty alcohol. So let's see if you are in fact in denial about how bad things might be, and not in a cliche manner that other people put. Let's be real here. There is no time for playing games with yourself. 1, are you often worried about having enough to make it through the day or night or whatever? 2, do you fear not having enough alcohol even when you wake up feeling like absolute garbage? 3, is alcohol the first thing you turn to when things go sour or you're emotionally upset? 4, do you like to drink when you're happy, sad, miserable, depressed, excited, or just about anything? 5, do you find yourself needing a drink or a few drinks before doing certain tasks, going places, or meeting certain people? One time I remember I had jury duty, and I hate jury duty. I get all anxious and uneasy, and I planned out how many alcohol drinks I would need to have that morning to make it till lunchtime when I knew I'd be able to drink again. And I had to be at jury duty at 7:30 a.m. Back then, I had built up a tolerance to what today would probably put me in the hospital. I had to have 2 small box wines and 3 or 4 24-ounce beers just to make it to lunch. I'm sure I reeked of alcohol, as we all do, but I can't notice it on ourselves because it's a dead giveaway that I was pretty much far gone. And gone I was. I was out of my mind, hijacked by alcohol in a delusion that took all my past issues and all my crap therapist and put little fancy letters to and shoved them in my face. So much that I thought I found myself at jury duty thinking a girl was flirting with me and having no problems flirting back, even though I was married, but my mind came up with all sorts of justifications for everything. It's okay because my wife doesn't do this. It's okay, it's not like that, or she's mean or whatnot. And I'm sure this poor girl was probably just humoring a poor soul in an alcoholic depression. But my egotistical mind said, oh boy, she likes you. Later on, out of the blue, this girl ended up having the same therapist as me. Go figure, it was 75 miles from where my jury duty was. And she had the time slot before mine. Crazy how things work out like that. So I told my therapist the story, and she said I should write a letter to her, and I did. Again, about crazy therapists. But the funny thing about being insane is you realize that so many people will support your insane delusions and actually encourage them. And I realize now that this was all just crazy talk, and until I was out of my alcoholic fog, I couldn't function in real life. I was in a total alcoholic fog, a dream world, a world where it was normal to stress about only having 17 beers and a half watered down vodka in the top of the closet, and how that wouldn't be enough. I was in denial about every aspect of my life, including drinking. I was unable to face who I was and what I had become because I was so busy keeping up this illusion I had portrayed to the rest of the world. Marcus is an altogether brilliant businessman and psychologist extraordinaire. But the fact was, I was as much liked and advised... Wait a minute, hold on. But the fact was, as much as people liked my advice and uncredentialed psychological outlook, I couldn't fix one fucking thing in my own life. I was a hack, a sham, a snake oil salesman. There was no substance. There was no meat. My life was a house of cards, and I was lighting it on fire and putting out each night with my repeated alcohol abuse. I even had our therapist convinced that I was not an alcoholic. I showed up for therapy drunk, one time so badly that a beer exploded in my car and sprayed all over me, all over my homework for therapy, and the guy knew I was drunk and sat there and told me I didn't have a drinking problem. So wake up, my dear brother or sister. These people will not help you sometimes, and sometimes they'll be so convinced by your bullshit that they will continue to push your denial agenda forward so you can keep drinking. We both know you are an alcoholic. You are reading these letters, you're listening to these talks, and it's making sense, and you're resonating with them. And you can see yourself in them. And before you get all defensive about admitting you have a problem, let me ask you something that changed my life and keeps me sober. What are you trying to protect? What's left? Are you seriously trying to pick up the pieces of your life and put them together in a suit and go out into the town as an altogether person? Are you trying to hold on to that last shred of pride you have left after walking in your sweats to get enough booze to make it through the day? Or perhaps you're trying to pretend that you're not falling all over yourself at every gathering that has alcohol, and that you're not acting like an ass getting drunk everywhere. No matter how good you think you can hold it on your own, because here's the deal, you can't hold your own. You can't think. You think you can because your drinking has been so much standing that sending sideways seems normal to you. And drinking at 7 a.m. seems normal too. That's not normal. It's not self-medicating. You are an alcoholic. Forget everything else. The OCDs, the ADDs, the other acronyms we're going to talk about later about how they don't really exist, but disclaimer on that, see a doctor anyway. And we're going to talk about how they're peanuts compared to alcoholism. We need to get the damn cat out of the bag and face the facts. You can't even stop drinking if you wanted to. And if you wanted to, your mind would say something like, stop forever? That's an awful long time. You mean not even a beer? No champagne at my friend's wedding? No nothing? Non-alcoholics don't worry about this stuff. Non-alcoholics don't have alcohol obsessions in their mind and compulsions in their body to drink. Alcoholics do. And I'm not saying you need to commit right now to anything for the rest of your life. I don't know where you're going to be in 25 years. You don't know. You will be a different person then. But I do know that right now you have a problem. And right now, you've had more than enough alcohol to last you the next few years without a drink, don't you think? So if your ass hasn't fallen off yet, don't drink today. And don't go cutting pieces of your ass off so you can drink. That's just stupid. Disclaimer, that was a joke. It's amazing what excuses we make ourselves and the rest of the world to be able to have one tiny little drink that will lead to 100 more. Can you not drink today? Let's find out. You can deny this now. The cat's out of the bag. Or you can't deny this now. The cat's out of the bag. Stop playing games with your life and let's get you some help. If you need to check into rehab, go do it. Don't drink. Don't fuck with this stuff. Love you enough to piss you off, your friend Marcus. All right, so that's letter number 7. Any thoughts on that?
That's a great letter. You got a lot of good points here, Marcus. Thanks for that letter. And it really hits the point with denial. And you got these questions here. You were going through the questions. Are you often worried about having enough to make it through the day? Do you fear not having enough alcohol? Is alcohol the first thing you turn to? Do you like to drink when you're happy, sad, miserable, however you're feeling? Do you find yourself needing a drink or a few drinks before doing certain tests? Yeah, that's, I was just like, yep, to all those. That's totally me. I was right there. The denial for me, I was thinking about it, and towards the end, my denial was a little bit different than how you experienced it. But then looking back further, before I had destroyed my marriage, denial was pretty similar. It wasn't so much the questions where my wife would be asking, how many have you had now, or do you think you've had enough? Because I'd hide it. So my denial was in hiding the amount, what I'd been drinking, and that's where a lot of my denial was. Towards the end, I didn't have anybody to deny to because I just completely isolated, and I was living by myself at that time, and I had a dog, and there was nothing to deny to the dog. But I was a heavy drinker. I knew I was an alcoholic, although I didn't think that my life was really falling apart. I still had a home and still able to get groceries in the refrigerator, and so there was my denial towards the end of the drinking. But great letter. I wanted to say congratulations to RJ. Is that RJS? Don't have my glasses on. And Naomi White, good to see you again. Awesome. 117 days, and RJS 3.5 weeks sober. Awesome. And good morning, Subella. Great to see you guys here.
Now, what would you say snapped you out of denial? Like what hit to where it was like, wow, I have a problem? Because I think a lot of our listeners might be in a situation where they're alone, or maybe their spouse drinks and there's really no one to deny to. They just, they feel like shit and they know they got a problem.
Right. Well, for me, it was a lot of the consequences were starting to build. I didn't have any huge consequences, but I got the drinking and driving thing a year before I quit, and I'd lost my wife, And so here I'm saying I didn't have a lot of big consequences. Those are some pretty big consequences right there. I mean, thank God I didn't hurt anybody driving.
Yeah.
But those are two big ones right there. Those two things weren't enough. When I quit the first time to go to rehab, it was I just couldn't physically function anymore. I couldn't walk the dog anymore. Sometimes it's the littlest things. And for me, I specifically remember my dog looking at me with that look of "What's wrong with you?" I mean, I don't. It may seem silly to hear, but
Yeah, dogs know. Yeah.
it was pretty incredible right there. But I had there was a girl in my life that at that time, and she'd visit me, and I just I just once I just told her I'm an alcoholic. But then I went to rehab, and I got out and started drinking again. And kind of the same thing happened, but then that time I had a big time medical emergency and ended up in the hospital with an induced coma after seizures and all that. And that right there was really, it was a medical incident right there. But when I woke up from that coma, it was, I got to do whatever I have to do to get sober. And it's kind of strange because when I was in my heavy drinking, I was thinking, I don't care if I live or not. It really doesn't matter. I was not suicidal. I've heard a lot of people talk about that they were suicidal. For me, it was just a matter of, I don't care either way.
Yeah.
But when I did finally wake up, I did care. I think I cared. At least I wanted to do what I needed to do to get sober. So,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
No, it does a lot because for me it was I was suicidal, and I didn't care if I lived anymore. Like I was kind of like, I wish there was a way to do this quick so that it would look like I didn't do it. That was kind of how I was, and if anyone is struggling with thoughts of suicide stuff, reach out to someone. Call someone, get some help. Because one of the things I learned that I never really looked at back then is those kind of thoughts are based on like an immediate response. Okay, so you're like looking for immediate relief when it's like, well, you could think about that stuff for the rest of your life, right? Nothing needs to happen right now. You could get help right now. You could talk to someone right now. There's lots of people that are willing to talk to you. I think there's like a national hotline you can Google if you need to find that in your local area. But for me, I was very much like that. And I think what really got me was seeing that I didn't have control of my mind. And I really believed that everything that was going on in my mind was real. Right. So when I went and involuntary went to a mental hospital, for me as an upstanding citizen, businessman, it was a blow to my ego that I needed, because I remember I went there and I thought, Marcus, you don't belong here. Because there was ladies talking to blades of grass. There was a lady clenching her pillow that looked like she'd been watching TV in the same position for 100 years. And she
Yeah.
looked like she was going to jump up and poke me in the eye. I don't know what it was. I was like, watch out. She's going to poke you in the eye. And just hearing everyone there, I thought I didn't belong there. But then, I kind of sat down and I calmed down. I went outside, and a little voice in my head said, Marcus, this is exactly where you belong. You're crazy. Your mind has gone crazy because you keep feeding alcohol to it. And obviously that's going to happen. Like if I eat too many Skittles, sugar is going to make something happen to my brain. Now, unfortunately, alcohol has a way, way, way more impact than Skittles do. And you start to believe things. You start to think things. You start to wonder what happened. You start to recount your day, recount your night, recount what you said. And those things, looking at that, I started to think, wow, this is something wrong. This is an obsession. This is major. It's not something small. And then I realized that, hey, you know what? All these bullshit ideas I made up about who I am don't even matter, because I'm
Right.
not who I am, right? Who I am is much more than a situation. Like who you are is more than your alcoholism. That's why when people say admitting I'm an alcoholic, well, who's the person admitting? What is an I? Who's me? Right? And we look at that, and we have these societal norms of who we think we are, and what we think it's going to damage if we admit something like that. And really, it's just all made up in your mind. Right? I actually found out that people supported me when I came out as a alcoholic and said, "Hey, you know what? I got a problem." Right? They were like, "Good, man. I'm happy for you." And I found that it was actually a good thing. So, did you find that to be the case as well? Like similarities in that?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, did
Um,
you ever have a time when you went crazy or thought you went crazy or figured out, hey, wow, I'm way off base from where I should be?
well, I remember the story. I've said it before, but it was when I was a cyclist. I'm still a cyclist, and I'd get on my bike drunk. I mean, that's pure insanity.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd wake up the next morning and that half gallon of bottle of vodka that I bought the day before is gone. I'm like, holy crap. And of course, I went through and measured how many shots are in one. That's 49 shots in a day. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
And you don't think about it when you're guzzling it.
Right? Yeah.
You're like, whatever. I just had, because for us, a shot's like this. Or like there's a shot, which is sad, really, because it's
I've heard
just
some insane things. I heard a story yesterday. This guy, he went into a bar. He's down to about 200 and 240 pounds now. He's a weightlifter, super super strong guy. He was 450 pounds,
wow.
and he'd been abusing alcohol and other stuff for his most of his adult life, and he ended up at a bar, and he got in a big fight. He was a fighter, and he thought somebody was kicking him in the back of the leg, but actually they were stabbing him. And so that all ended, and they took him to the hospital, and he was in a gown, right, in the hospital. And he was just in his insanity, and he went running. He ran out of the hospital. They couldn't catch him. He ended up under a freeway pass. He woke up 2 days later with a woman's coat on. I mean, that's the insanity that this stuff can do. And he said he was mentioning to me that was just a normal occurrence. There was
Yeah.
nothing wild about that. Maybe it was a little bit extreme for what the things he did, but that's the insanity that this stuff brought up.
Yeah, you're wondering if the coat looks nice. You're like, I hope the coat
Yeah,
looks okay.
exactly.
It's a little tight. But yeah, that's the thing is it really takes over. And what happens with alcoholism is like this letter, it becomes the forefront of your mind. Your brain starts to say, this is what I need for survival. And for me, I stopped eating. I stopped, all kinds of things. And when you stop eating and you're living on alcohol, there's a problem, right? Because
Yeah.
that's not right. You're not sleeping, everything like that. Let's take a look at some of these questions here. You want to take some of those, Terry?
Sure, absolutely. Naomi, yeah, I remember your story from other webinars as far as the EMS ride, and that's what happened. Well, actually, I got a ride to the hospital, and that's where I had the same situation as what happened to you. I almost died, and that did end my drinking forever up to now. I mean, hopefully I could stay that way, and that's why I do these things to try to help other alcoholics. RJS, you're asking for advice for someone who's young and recovering from alcoholism, and that you're young. And yeah, that's hard for a young person. I've worked with some young people as well, and it's a difficult thing because there's a lot of peer pressure. I think Naomi was making sure that she commented on what you said about seeking medical help and that stuff. She's right on point there as far as if you're experiencing withdrawal, you definitely need to seek the professional help. But if you've gotten through that and you're just having a frustrating time, well, the one thing I've learned, it's easier for me because I'm older and I don't experience a lot of the same peer pressure, although I get it. But I just don't drink, and I have a cocktail that not a cocktail, but I have a drink that I usually go to when I do go to a bar. If I am at a bar, something like a ginger syrup with soda water, something simple like that. There's lots of non-alcoholic drinks you can order. I stay away from the non-alcoholic beers because they do have a little bit of alcohol, and it reminds me too much of a regular beer, anyways. But that's one of the tools you can use. The most obvious one, and for me, when I was 3.5 weeks sober, and this was pretty much my rule for that first year, is I didn't go to bars
Same here.
unless I may have walked into one here and there because I absolutely had to meet somebody there for some legitimate reason that had nothing to do with drinking. I stayed out of them. I tried to stay out of liquor aisles at the store, which is impossible because they put the liquor next to the eggs now, you know. But just tried to stay
For
away
us
from that.
alcoholics, right?
Yeah,
Bacon and
exactly.
eggs and
I was
booze.
really
It's like,
careful about my work. I'm a caterer, and I there's alcohol there the whole time, and I actually didn't work for a few months, and then I slowly got back into it. But I just did everything I could. Another thing that's helpful is just being around other sober young people and doing activities with them. I mean, I'm sure you like to do the physical activities, hiking or biking or I don't know, water skiing, whatever. But find sober groups. They're out there. You just got to look them up and look up on some of them sites like Meetup.com has sober groups, things like that. So there's things you can do, but it does take effort, and it's definitely not easy. But once you get it going, that's what I do. I hang out with sober people, and I do still go now at this point in my sobriety. I can go to a bar, but it's not a habit. If my wife and I go out to eat and the restaurant's full, but there are seats available in the bar, maybe we'll go in there and eat dinner there. But once again, that's a legitimate reason I'll be in the bar, or if I'm meeting somebody for a specific reason. So there's that.
yeah.
So what do you think, Marcus?
I agree. Just try to understand yourself and your limits. In the beginning, I was like, okay, stay away from alcohol. I'll stay away from bars, even pizza restaurants, because I'd have a pizza restaurant I went to a couple times a month, and they knew what I liked, and they bring it over to me. And I actually, when I first started going out, because sometimes I would go into the bar to get takeout food, if I don't want to cook or something. And I would tell the lady, because there's only like 3 bartenders for the whole place, so by the time you go there 3 times, you've met them all. And I just tell her, hey, I'm an alcoholic, so I don't drink anymore. And she's like, okay, cool. And that just kind of helped me, because then it was like, okay, now I'm out there, that's how it's going to work. RJS has something. I don't know if we went over this question yet, but he said, any advice for someone who's young and recovering from alcoholism? I'm only 24, so it's kind of embarrassing for me. I get that. I was only 34 when I got sober, and thinking, wow, some 34-year-old, I'm supposed to, be able to handle this. And I'm sure Terry felt the same way when he got sober. But I would look at it like it's not so much the age that matters, and actually it might be a favor to like the world to you, saying, hey, look, get sober now. That way you don't have to go through what Marcus went through at 34, and Terry went through at his age, and other people go through. We can look at that and say, it doesn't really matter. Alcohol is not partial. Like, I know people that are teenagers who get sober. I know teenagers that should get sober. So you just have to look at it, and disclaimer: teenagers should not drink if it's not legal in your area. And from this channel, I'm sure you understand that we're not big advocates of drinking. To people who can handle it, that's their business. But to me, I know I can't. And being young, like I look at it, and he says, I'm kind of embarrassed because I'm 21. Don't get to the point I got to. I stopped being embarrassed. I stopped being embarrassed so much. I was taken away from my house in a police car, drunk, in my pajamas. I was taken to a mental hospital. I wasn't really ashamed of that. So we look at it, and it's like, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're kind of looking at it, and you're still like, hey, you know what? let's get this back on track. And I would focus on that if that makes sense. Naomi says, RJ, seek medical help. There are ways that they can help you withdrawal. Yes, always, if you're dealing with the withdrawal, go see a doctor, even if you don't think you need one, because you might not know what's going on with you. So get some help if you're detoxing. She also says, if I didn't go to the hospital when I was in withdrawal, I'd probably be dead. Well, Naomi, we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're doing good as well. And she says there's no shame in seeking help. There isn't. Right? We have this stigma in our society that it's like, don't ask for help. It's like, why the hell do you think God made more than one person? So we can ask for help, right? If we were meant to do it alone, he would have only made, like, Adam. He wouldn't have made an Eve or a Mark or a Naomi or an RJ, right? We're meant to be that way, and it's our society that screwed things up. I mean, our society, I was just thinking about this today because I have a business that teaches people about, making a living on the internet. And some of the things they say is, don't show lifestyle pictures because that's an assumption that they're going to get that result by buying your product. So you have to have disclaimers. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, what if they did that to the alcohol business? Right? I mean, every alcohol business, they don't show me and Terry falling over and going to the hospital, go get a drink. They show people with, fun and yachts and boats and dates and everything like that. And I was thinking how skewed our society has gotten from like, okay, well, we're going to disclaimer this, which like, whatever, someone will buy something that might actually be good for them with a product that I have. But when it comes to alcohol, they're allowed to show whatever lifestyle they want with the assumption you're going to get it for whatever reason. And in our society, it's acceptable. Hey, man, you're 21, you're in your prime, you shouldn't be quitting drinking. Well, maybe you should. Maybe you shouldn't have it in the first place. It's not exactly good for us. And, the whole idea of going out and getting ripped and everything, I mean, that's to each his own. But again, it's not really good for you. It's just our society that puts these stigmas on us, these things about, hey, this is what a man should be. A man should be able to hold his own. Terry, Marcus, I mean, bro, you guys ain't real men if you can't hold your own. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? Or, hey, you shouldn't ask for help. A man doesn't it? What? Seriously? Right? And I'm thankful that society is changing the roles on that and is starting to wake up and understand, hey, this stuff doesn't matter, right? These roles we put don't matter. My thoughts about who I think I am and what my standing in. Like, really, my value on earth is the size of my house, how much I put in my car, these things don't really matter.
No.
We should be valued based on what we give back to the community. Like, there's people that help people, and that's good. There's people who, are happy, and that's good. And we got to look at that. Abba Ella says, how can you help someone who's an alcoholic but hasn't hit bottom? Well, I would try to be rational with them. One, what I would do is I go to talksober.com and I'd print out these letters. Okay, get all these letters and print them out and leave them in the bathroom. Right? So that when he's woke up or she's woke up and hung over and they're in the bathroom, this stuff's going to make a lot of sense to them. Right? It's going to click. It might make them mad. And you could just be like, hey, I was just reading it because I found these guys on YouTube and I got them. And, if you don't want me to leave them in the bathroom anymore, that's cool. But you could accidentally do it anyway. But start to understand what's going on with them. And to me, one of the things was, if someone claims they don't have a problem, tell them to go without it for a month.
Right.
Or a year. Anyone who doesn't have a problem with something can go a month, no problem. They don't even think about it. Like, if I go to some person who has a glass of wine with dinner, and I'm like, hey, do you think you have a problem? No, I don't have a problem. Could you go without it for a month? Yeah, if I had to. I mean, if I went to the doctor and, he was like, hey, you can't drink for a month, I wouldn't. Now, back then, if me and Terry went to the doctor and they said I couldn't drink for a month, I'd be like hell I can't. I'd go drink anyway because I didn't really care. So you really have to look at it. But, the best thing you could do is arm yourself with information. And that's what we provide on this channel. That's what we provide over at talksober.com. For those that are interested, we are starting a digital kind of like rehab, if you will. It's not like a rehab, but it's like a digital hey, go through this for 30 days. It's going to give you the mindset. It's going to teach you what's going on. And even if you've been sober a while, it's going to give you good tools. Because in rehab, in life, I've learned that there's little things that have kept me going. There's little things that I use and I cling to when I need them. Like this past week was hell for me, right? It was really difficult. My sleep schedule was off. Arguments with family members, just stuff going on. A lot of deep thoughts, too, because I know that deep thoughts are what got me when I was drinking. It was like, I need to make a decision about this now. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I do this? Do I do that? And those decisions would be really hard on me. And because of the tools that I've learned, because of the stuff that we're going to teach you in the digital rehab that we're making over at Talk Sober, those things are going to be available and you'll be able to learn them. We're going to make it affordable. If you cannot afford it, then, we'll let you in. We'll figure out a way to do that because necessity is more important. I don't want you to be like, oh, well, I would have gotten sober, but, I couldn't afford it. And unfortunately, the rehab community is very money driven, and I don't want to be a part of that. So hopefully that makes sense. But I hope that answered the question. Did you have anything to add to Ella's question, or Abba Ella?
Well, sure, yeah. The one biggest thing is there's nobody, or at least I've never found a definition as to what rock bottom is. So you can look at rock bottom as kind of like my coffee maker's beeping. Sorry about that. You can look at rock bottom as like an elevator ride going down. You can get off that elevator at any floor. You don't have to go all the way down to the basement, and that's it's. If you're talking about somebody else, it's a difficult thing because really they have to be the one that's going to decide that they absolutely need to quit and that deep down inside that they're an alcoholic. But you can definitely do things like give them the letters. That's an awesome way to get them going, get that seed planted. And you can suggest things to them, but you got to be careful on how much you suggest to these people, how much you're driving that person to try and quit drinking, because they may just push you away, and then you're not going to be able to be of any help. So just being supportive in a positive way and trying to give them some of the tools that we provide can be very helpful. That would be it. But really, with rock bottom, a person can stop drinking anywhere. I think I got down to rock bottom by going to the ICU and almost dying. But I know somebody who that's happened to, I don't know, 5 times. And he's just spinning that roulette wheel of, is he not going to come back from one of these? So there's many different definitions of rock bottom, except for 6 feet under. That would be the rockest bottom. But you don't get to come back from that one. So,
and I think one thing is you can subtly get in people's minds by planting little seeds. Plant little seeds here and there, and find little things that you could say that won't start an argument, but will make them think. Like that thing, hey, if you don't have a problem, then you should have no problem quitting for 30 days. Well, I just don't want to. Okay, well, that's fine. Just decide who really doesn't want to. Is it the alcohol that doesn't really want to, or is it you? Those kind of things help as well.
Yeah.
Let's see, Catherine.
I love Catherine's question because I think you and I have 2 different answers for this. So go for it.
Okay. Catherine says, what made you guys abuse alcohol? Are you aware of what it was exactly? And how do you deal with that, the root of the issue? Excellent, excellent question. This is one that plagued me. When I was drinking, I was like, there's something that makes me drink, and I'm going to figure it out, because when I fix that, I'll be able to drink. And I was like, I'm going to be good. That's the deal. For me, I grew up in an abusive family. I was split between my mom and her husband and my dad, who had me most of the time. There was abuse all around, bullied in school, stress with work, self-identity issues, mental issues that I was diagnosed with, which I now realize a lot of them are only as big as you make them. So the root cause for me was a lot of things. Like, I had every reason in the world to want to escape my life, right? So I would say the root cause was wanting to escape my life, escape my thoughts. For those of you guys who have listened to me for more than 5 seconds, you realize my mind is going a mile a minute, and I actually tone it down for the webinars. And I drink decaf. So this is me toned down on decaf with 9 hours of sleep. So if I'm not that, my mind's going 1,000 miles a minute, right? That's the way it works. We were watching Fantastic Beasts last night, and I was like, hey, to my kid and my wife, I was like, which beast would I be? And there's this little beast, he's like this little animal, and he foresees the future, right? He'll be sitting here, and he'll be like, this is going to fall, that's going to catch this, get in this computer, it's going to catch it on fire, and this is what's going to happen. That's how my mind works really fast, right? And it sees things, not like a weird superhero thing, just like an annoying, why the hell do I predict things that aren't really going to happen? But I have that, and for me, when I was drinking, I wanted to shut it off because I believed it, right? And so I had these thoughts of, something's wrong with me. I thought this, therefore I'm this. I thought this, therefore I'm a bad person. I thought this, therefore this. And I was constantly having this battle with my mind, and it wouldn't shut off. I went and saw someone who talked about meditation, and only the universe we live in would give me someone who had a stutter. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but if you're an alcoholic and all you want to do is get a drink and get a solution to your problem, and a guy takes more than 2 seconds to tell you the solution, and it isn't the solution you want, you're going crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, and I'm having this battle with my mind, and I want to figure things out. Why am I like this? Why is this happen? Why can't I eat in front of people? Why am I anxious everywhere I go? Why can't I sit still? What's wrong with me? So these were the root causes of what led me to want to escape my life with drinking. But as I started drinking, alcohol was the reason I kept drinking, right? So there's a point in your life where you're like, here's these issues. And I could look at these issues and I can say, well, let's learn how to deal with the issues. Or I could go to drink and the issues become a non-existent, which is actually like putting gasoline on the fire, making me want to drink more, making more happen, and everything like that. So to look at it and say, what's the root cause? Well, the root cause is, for whatever reason, I'm prone to want to drink. Whatever reason, upbringing, whatever. The root cause becomes a moot point, right? The root cause becomes, well, does it really matter? Because the fact of the matter is now Marcus is an alcoholic. And now no matter what, right, it doesn't matter if a step-parent abused him. It doesn't matter if this happened. It doesn't matter if he has a mental illness, because right now he's an alcoholic. And what I actually found is that when I got sober, I didn't immediately like rush to therapy. I actually didn't go to therapy until me and my wife started going to couples therapy. What I learned was that these things fell by the wayside because they weren't that big of a deal in comparison to the question of who am I? Because we all carry these stories about who am I? I got abuse. I'm abused, Marcus. Therefore, I'm a victim and I need to drink. Right? That's just a story you tell yourself. That stuff happened in the past. It sucked. I'm sorry that it happened, but it doesn't need to define you and it doesn't need to make you drink. Right? That doesn't have to happen. Very important. Ella, we'll get to that question in just a minute. But I think, did I answer that congruently? Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And
Okay.
you know, it's interesting. So for me, let me tell you about me. 37 years of drinking. So was I drinking alcoholically for 37 years? Well, I don't know. You could decide that, but I had the first drink, 11 years old, when many alcoholics have had their first drink, probably when many people have had their first drink. But drank it, went to parties in high school. Was I trying to hide from anything or push down any feelings? I don't know. I don't have that answer. But I was raised with a mom and a dad in a middle class neighborhood. I wasn't in the popular group. I wasn't in the loser group. I was kind of in the middle. And that's the way I went through most of my life, through high school and college. I was just I was in there. I was in the group. I did not have abuse or any big incidents happen in my life. Sure, I felt uncomfortable in crowds and things like that, but I think everybody has a little bit of anxiety in situations where they might be, the center of attention. Or some people love that, but um, I didn't. But I don't know that I was really trying to hide it, and I don't really think I drank that alcoholically. Um, in high school and college, I was a pretty heavy drinker because there were parties all the time. I was in a fraternity. When I got out of college, I did love my wine as I'm a chef and love live in the wine country. And my normal night would be a few drinks, maybe, four, every once in a while six or something like that. So I guess a normal person would call that heavy drinking. Was it alcoholically? Was my life falling apart? No, but I liked it. And eventually I started to need more. And I liked it. And really, um, I don't have any real root reason other than what Marcus just said was alcohol. I liked alcohol. I liked alcohol. I heard some people talk about how alcohol stopped working for them. It did not stop working for me. I liked it until the very day I had my last drink. It gave me escape. Sure, at the end I had huge anxiety because as an alcoholic and I knew I had to quit and it was going to kill me and I didn't know how. But I think that just happens when you become an alcoholic. But what I've learned in sobriety, and I was trying to figure it out for those first couple years of sobriety, why I became an alcoholic. And it was driving me crazy as well. But what I learned is it doesn't matter. I'm an alcoholic. Who cares why? There's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is work on my sobriety now. That's the most important thing for me now, and that's what I put as my priority in life is staying sober because I'll everything else will fall in line well enough if I stay sober, and if I don't, it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So there's me. I think Marcus and I do have similar. When it comes down to it, really, it's the alcohol. The other stuff really doesn't matter that much. Sure, it may have contributed, but it's just that predisposed to alcoholism. Who knows? They don't know a reason yet. And they're trying to figure it out so they can find a pill that cures us. But until then, we just got to
I,
work on
uh,
what we're
I,
doing.
it's funny because the curing thing is interesting to me. One, it'd make whoever thought of it a lot of money, and I think that's the motive behind it more so than actually helping people.
Sure, of course.
But I did a video on this channel about anxiety and a question of is anxiety leading to something else? And you can also take that, and the whole idea was I think that anxiety is leading to some sort of enlightenment or spiritual awakening for people because you're not comfortable. And every alcoholic I've ever heard says I'm not comfortable in my own skin. Right? I think have you been that way, Terry? I don't know
Oh,
if I've heard it from
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And that's the root of anxiety. That's the root of a lot of alcoholism. I don't know if it's the root of all. And then, the alcohol takes over. But I think what's happening here is alcoholism is driving you to a point where you're saying, I'm not comfortable in my own skin. And now alcohol's fucked that up even worse. So I'm not comfortable in my own skin and I'm drinking and I'm ashamed and all this shit's happening. And I think what's happening is you're on the brink of a spiritual breakthrough, enlightenment, letting go of the bullshit notions that you told yourself all your life, letting go of the bullshit notions that society tells us about what we should be, what we shouldn't be, what we ought to be. And I really think that's what's going on. But I think no one's really sat to say, hey, this is what's going on. Like, you're not just a screw up alcoholic fool. One, alcohol is taking over. And I personally believe, and I bet it's be backed up, I know a lot of alcoholics throughout the years have proved this notion right. I think if anyone drinks enough alcohol, they will become an alcoholic. If you drink enough for a long period of time, eventually your body's going to be like, well, we need this. Because look at it. I was anxious when I first started, so I drank a little, and it worked a little. And then the whole idea of alcohol not working anymore, it stopped working a little, and I needed more. And then it wasn't like hey, I could have one at lunch. I got a thing to go to at 4. I'll be okay. It was, I need to drink as much as I can up till 4 because I know I'm not going to be okay. And so what happened was the alcohol dampened all the stuff, right? So what's happening is like you're on the verge of, boom, my life is going to be great. I'm going to have this awakening. And by great, I don't mean money, fancy, whatever. I mean thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Thoughts. Because when I first got sober, I made less than I had made in years. Still doing okay. Luckily, we sold our house, so I was able to like not work for a while. But it wasn't like I was out buying yachts and yay, everything was great, right? I lived in a smaller place. My pride was shattered, but I was on the verge of, hey, I'm letting go of all these things. I'm letting go of, I'm a victim. Everything happened to me. And I learned, hey, you know what? If there was a different kid given to those parents, that kid would have been abused too. Had nothing to do with me. Had everything to do with all these people who are, have their issues. And so I learned different ways of thinking, and those ways of thinking are worth more than anything I could put a price tag on, right? They're more than anything. It gave me a relationship with my kids, more so than I had before, where it's like, hey, now I understand things. I could be the dad that's like, hey, I get that. I understand it. I know what's going on. So it's really, really, really important to look at and understand, because I believe that everyone here, guy who's 21, he's sitting there thinking about, man, shit, I wish I became an alcoholic at 50. I haven't even lived yet. Right? You're on the verge of something that most people might not even get their entire life. An awakening where you're like, boom, 21 years old, and I fucking get it. I get it. I get that everything I held on dear to, everything that was so big in my life, doesn't even matter in comparison to things. Right? Doesn't even matter. Oh, I lost my job. The whole world's over. No, it's not. The whole world's not over. You're still alive. You're still breathing. Your job's just a job.
Let me tell RJS something here as well about that getting sober at 21, because I think back, and I'm sober, and I think back going, man, that's got to be hard because you're going to miss out on so much. But I got a bunch of friends that 40 years sober, 50 years sober, and it's quite a few of them. And not one of them has ever told me that they missed out on life. Every one of them has told me that getting sober was the best thing that ever happened to them in their life. And that, yes, they did have some difficulty when they were first sober, but I think we all do, no matter what our age. But that's a big thing. Those guys, they've lived it. They've lived the sobriety since they were 20 or right around there. And they loved it. And they've had great lives because of it.
And listen to the bad in our stories. The mental hospital, the seizures, the hospital, Naomi with her issue. You're going to miss out. I'm sorry, you're going to miss out on that. Right? Yeah. I would trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade the awakening I had, but I would trade all the bad stuff. Unfortunately, the bad stuff had to lead to it. Or whatever. I probably could have done it better if I wasn't a stubborn idiot. But the bad stuff led to it. And, that's where it's leading you. And it's time to look at it and be like, wow. Like, I'm living my life based on an assumption of what I think the world is putting down my throat, which actually isn't even that good. Right? I don't want to settle for the world's version of a good life. I want to settle for what I think it's good. Right? Like waking up and not being hungover, or waking up and being like, wow, I enjoy where I'm at because I enjoy being with me. I used to not be able to sit and be with me. I had to drink because I'm like, I don't want to sit and talk to me in my head. Man, you suck, Now I'm at the point where I'm like, man, I could sit there. I can think. I can have things happen in my life, and I don't have to like I don't sit and think about not having enough money equaling end my life so people can have my life insurance. That's a thought that I'm glad I don't think anymore. Right now, I'm not. It used to be Marcus Campbell is worth what the life insurance paper says or what he makes. Mm-hmm. Now I'm like, Marcus Campbell is worthwhile just like some poor kid in India is worth just as much as me. Right? And I look at it now, and what we deserve in life, to me personally, is what the person who has the least on earth has. That's what we deserve. right? So like I deserve as much as the guy who is scrounging for food in India, the kid who has no shoes, that's what I deserve, because I didn't choose where I was born. I didn't choose whatever, right? For whatever reason, I'm here, he's there. I don't know, right? I don't know. And another thing in sobriety is it's okay to not know. I used to have an answer. Now it's like I don't know, and I'm okay with that. So hopefully that made sense. I know I like to ramble. You want to take? I'll take Ella. Abba Ella says, when are you starting the digital program? I've been procrastinating on it for a long time. So I think what we'll do is we'll set up the link today. And if you guys want to join, you can join, and we'll start it now. Not like now, today, but we'll start it. We'll get everything ready, and we'll start it now if you guys want to do that. And if you do, just give us a thumbs up or whatever. I think what we'll do is we'll make it like, easy for everyone to join, and then we'll make a members area that's going to be ready for you. That'll have everything. You'll be able to download it. You'll be able to get notes from the videos, be able to get private videos where you can actually talk about your issues with us. And you're going to get a course where it's going to take you through, right? What I want to do is I want to engineer it in a way that understands it, because I think when you learn about this, you start to understand the alcoholic brain, and we can kind of orchestrate it that way and make it for you. So what I'll do is today at around 4 o'clock my time, it's 12 o'clock now. So give me a few hours. I'll put a link on talksober.com. There'll be an option to join in full. There'll be an option to join monthly. And there'll be an option if you guys are like, hey, I'm broke and I need to join. We'll give you that option as well. All right. You want to take Sandra's question? And that's at talksober.com.
Sure. Yeah, that's a difficult one, Sandra. Here, I'll read it. Any advice for a mom who has a daughter that drinks straight out of the bottle to the point of standing up, blacked out? She gets violent, physically violent, and that's a very, very difficult thing. It's usually best not to be approaching somebody about quitting drinking. As far as quitting drinking for good when they are hammered. I know, although sometimes they may say yes. I remember when I'd be in the middle of my drunkenness, I'd be like, okay, this is the last bottle. But a lot of times, if they're getting physically violent, they're probably going to be in complete defensive survival mode. And it can cause some bad things to happen. A lot of times a good time to approach them is when they're waking up all hungover, but then, it's difficult. It's never going to be easy. We are not an Al-Anon program, but we can definitely give you insight as far as how the alcoholic is thinking. And Al-Anon may be some way to go, because you're going to talk to other people that are in the exact same situation or that have already gone through it and have worked their way out of it. And so that would be a suggestion, and you can just Google them. You'll find them on Google and figure out a place. They're all over the country or the world.
And a side note, I've been studying alcohol. I started reading about alcoholism and psychology and stuff a long time before I got sober. And, a couple, I think it was about 8 or 9 months ago, my brother had a problem with alcohol, and he's been having problems with drugs and everything. And, I tried as much as I could to try to get him sober. We took him to rehab, did all kinds of things, but he just didn't want it, right? He'd just rather drink for whatever reason. So, I mean, I don't know. Would it be different if I lived with him and I talked to him about stuff? I don't know. So we got to look at it, and what we have to do is we have to understand what our part is. What can we do, and without owning it? Because oftentimes we look at it and it's like, well, hey, it's my daughter. I probably have something to do with it, right? I would think that. I'd be like, okay. Like, that would be the first thought. If one of my kids had trouble, I'd be like, well, yeah, come bring me the list of how it's my fault or whatever. And it's not that it's our fault or anything. It's just, it's a part to play in it, right? And maybe there's some growth that you need to go through where it's like, hey, maybe I need to understand some stuff about myself or what I can do or what I can change and things like that. And I would say go back to the Serenity Prayer, right? What are the things you can change? Well, maybe I can not have alcohol in the house. Maybe I cannot bargain with them. You don't bargain with alcoholics. That's just silly. Maybe only have 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 5, 100 is never enough for an alcoholic.
Right.
And maybe try something different. Try understanding, and maybe say, "Hey, what do you want to say? What is it that you're running from? What is it we can help you with?" Try different things. Start to learn about how the brain works and how stuff like that works. When the violent stuff happens, best thing I could say is get her safe, get you safe. Hands down. If you're dealing with a violent alcoholic, get you safe, get her safe. If that
Yep.
means calling police, if that means calling ambulances, if that means moving out, depending on ages and issues, of course. But do what you got to do. Sometimes it's drastic, but get yourself safe because, that's not going to solve anything. Violence isn't going to solve anything. But look at that. And maybe go through the course that we're putting together so that you understand what to say to them. Because I know that for me, there are seeds that I planted in my brother's brain, and it kind of gives like you can't do that anymore without understanding it, right? And those things are big, and they get in your brain. And I remember when I went into rehab, I don't know if you remember James saying this, but he came to me and he's like, "I'm going to brainwash you. That's what we're going to do. We're going to brainwash. I'm going to put things in your brain, and you're going to be here 6 months from now, and you're going to be like, fuck, James is in my brain. Now I got to pick that thing up. Can't walk over it without picking it up," or whatever it is. So hopefully that helps, Sandra. If not, let us know. If it does, let us know, and we can kind of take it from there. So I guess we'll take some last-minute questions. If you have any last-minute thoughts, Terry, let us know as well, and then we'll take it from there.
Right on. Yeah, denial is it's a big thing for everybody, and as they're getting on that road to sobriety, it's hard. You got to let go of the denial and admit alcoholism and admit not just admit to other people, but totally to yourself. It's just an absolute necessary step towards getting sober. Sometimes it's an ongoing step, but it's something that needs to be done. And whether it's just the family coming to you all at the same time and telling you that you're an alcoholic and you're denying that, or it's me where I just hid it. So there was no outward denial, but it was denial to myself. It's a difficult thing to get around, but it's one of the necessary steps, and getting that willingness to get towards sobriety, and not just be willing to do what it takes, but actually doing what it takes. You have to take responsibility for your sobriety. I mean, there other people want you to get sober, family, wives, husbands. They all want you to get sober, but really, it's you that's going to do it, and that's where your willingness and doing what you need to do have to come in. So the willingness, and you have to be honest with yourself and do what it takes. And
Cool.
Thank you so much.
All right. And what we'll do today is for everyone who joins the Talk Sober, when we put the link up, it'll be up later today, talksober.com. We'll give you guys a free Talk Sober t-shirt. And if you have to go to the bar, you can wear it. And they'll be like, "What's a Talk Sober?" And you'll be like, "That means I don't drink." And it's got a little Marcus on it, too. So, I mean, you can't beat that. And I still got to send Terry his. But we'll give you a free shirt, too. But, it'll help you out and everything like that. And everything. So, yeah, any last-minute questions before we wrap up? Any pressing desires or needs that we need to go through? Give a couple minutes for that. Also, you could get these letters at talksober.com. Just put your name and email, and we'll send them out to you. And, yeah. And make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. And put when you subscribe, click the little bell, and it'll tell you when we're live.
Right.
All right, so I think that's it for now. Look forward to seeing you guys in the course. Even if you've been sober a while, like Naomi and people who have some time under their belt, get it anyway, because I think it's going to help your life and help you understand things and help you really understand the basics. Because a lot of times, we can string together some time, but people go out and they relapse and things like that. And we want to study why that happens and how we can avoid it and give you guys the tools that'll work, and a fancy t-shirt with a little Marcus on it. It's almost life size. If you guys have met me, you would get that joke in person. Right? All right, so thanks for joining. We'll see you next Thursday with letter number 8. I think the topic of 8 is Hurricane of Thoughts. I wrote that when we moved to Florida, so it makes sense there.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks again for joining. Don't drink even if your ass falls off. Learn the tools you need. Come see us if you need help over at TalkSober.com, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.